Hey guys, this is exciting. This is Tall, and welcome to the first episode of DENtalks, where we like to have conversations with successful people from all walks of life as they take us on their journey of self discovery in the hopes that you can begin your own. Today, we're so lucky to have my friend Kate Walsh here with us, a woman who's best known for her role of Addison on Grey's Anatomy and then Private Practice. You'd also know her from starring in 13 Reasons Why from Netflix. We chat about everything from turning 50, the dreaded 50, to divorce, how her brain tumor changed her life, and dealing with mortality at a very young age. Also, how she's learned to really check in with her own spirituality and intuition, and how it's made her make choices that she never, ever thought she'd make. Make sure you stay tuned for Kate's personal practice at the end of the podcast, where she reads a poem that inspires her. Everything is Waiting for You by David White. Here with Kate Walsh, a dear, 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 dear friend of mine. And I'm so excited to chat with you today.
I know, me too.
And before this started, we were actually just chatting, so we should just jump in there, kind of about, Kate just turned 50, so we're catching you at an amazing time. I mean, you just turned. I mean,
yeah,
a couple weeks ago?
October 13th, on Friday the 13th.
Her birthday is the day before my daughter's, which I love. I know.
Oh my gosh.
And so you were just saying that you're this crazy, like, talk about it. You're just saying I'm at such an evolutionary period.
Yeah, I'm in this completely transitional, amazing new phase where I'm about to move back to New York, and I literally don't know where I'm going to live in less than 30 days, but I'm cool with it. And, but I will say, not to be corny, but that's hugely, in large part, due to my meditation practice that changed my life and makes it in small part, like no small part, rather, like makes me able to kind of go with the flow and go, all right, I gotta, I'm cool. My spiritual container is big enough to handle the unknown in pretty much every aspect of my life. But I do have a job right now. I know I have a job.
Great job right now.
Yeah, I have a great job.
But you were saying like you're in an evolutionary period. Do you feel like it started with 50? Because I feel like you were already in it.
No, I was already in it for the last several years. I mean, arguably, I knew, it's like a storm that is coming. I've always been a spiritual person. But I knew like, oh, this is some big changes are coming. In the last probably about 5 years ago, it started like, oh, some stuff's coming down and I don't know what it is, but I know it's going to shake up my life. And then in every aspect it did. I got sick with a brain tumor, which that's a change everything. And thank God I'm healthy and well, but a relationship that ended.
But wait, let's back up because this is all amazing stuff. But let's talk. Yeah, because 5 years ago is way before. Like, what was precipitating for you then that you were feeling? Because that is before the.
I just remember I was working. You and I were both working in a.
This is around when you and I became friends.
Yeah, and I knew then it was sort of my last big. I didn't know at the time, but I was aware that I didn't want to keep working the way I was working, which is like I did not, which is like 70, 80 hours a week, like a mad woman with like 800 different things going. Now I say like a mad woman. Before, when I was 40 or 30, up until 45, really, I was like, this is great. I got off on it and I really enjoyed being busy, and the busier I was, the more I could do. And I really loved that.
And successful.
It's successful.
And in the business you're in, it's success that's also people know about it. So it's like a little ego driven as well.
Oh, for sure. And I really enjoyed it. I really, I was doing, I made a fragrance. I was on a show. I was redoing the house. I loved it. And developing a show, I think with, you, it's like so much. And again, for me, it was always sort of a coping mechanism. I think anxiety, or I would deal with by just getting busier so I could sort of dissipate it with many different projects at once. And then I kind of sense like I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to work so hard. I want to relax more, but I didn't really quite know how yet. And so that's where all that started. I had had a serious meditation practice that I had found a few years before with TM.
When did you start that? Do you remember like around when?
It was when I was doing private practice. So it was probably around like 41, 42.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what drew you to that in the first place?
I'm trying to remember how I was originally. My brother was doing it, and he's like, found it very helpful. And I think because I was working so much and just exhausted, and it was just my old coping mechanisms, like say having a venti quad cappuccino every morning and a half a pack of cigarettes were not quite working. I was like, you know what, maybe I've got to switch it up. No, but and friends of mine, my friend Paul Edelstein too, was really into TM. And so I went and I got trained, I got my mantra, and I did it religiously if that's an oxymoron, but 20 minutes twice daily. I did it for like 3 years, like never missed a
I
day.
heard they're down to 10. Like they'll allow you to get away with 10
Oh,
minutes twice
really?
a day. Yeah.
So then I fell off, but before I did, I mean, it changed everything. It really got me to a place of trusting clarity, like a really consistent, clear place of, well, what makes me happy, what doesn't, what feels good, what doesn't. Other than creatively, it would loosen me up. I mean, I remember shooting a web commercial in the Bahamas for Billionaire Boyfriend perfume, and I was like, gotta meditate. I'm on a boat in the Caribbean, like in a remote island. I was like, excuse me. Came downstairs at 4:00. I was like, did my thing. And like ideas and creative solutions would come to me other than peace and calmness. And clarity, most of all, clarity and peace.
So when you were crazy at that time, it just kept you grounded also.
Super grounded and clear about what I needed and to keep myself happy and sort of in a state of joy. I realized too that I wanted to be done with private practice. I was like, oh, this is a consistent thing. I'm ready to be finished creatively.
Which is a big deal. I mean,
which is huge.
Just explain, because that is the thing you'd been working towards almost your entire life.
Yeah, and you don't realize it when you're an actor. You're like, oh my gosh, this is great. This is success. This is amazing. The character that started on Grey's, it was supposed to be just a recurring, and then it turned into series regular, and then that show was a huge hit, and then they spun my character off, and then it worked.
And you got your own show.
You got your own show, and like, so this is awesome. But I was exhausted, and creatively I wasn't. I was sort of bored, and so, but that's a huge deal to even contemplate, obviously.
Yep.
And you're like, I want to be done now. And you're like, the 150 people are employed because of this show, at least. So you don't want to take those, decisions lightly and stuff. And so I feel like we all came to a great agreement, but I was very aware that it was not just like I just needed to.
Well, it's also a big deal because especially as an actor, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but isn't there a little bit of a fear of, but what does that mean if I don't have this?
Yes, but I've always been in that weird schizophrenic, one might argue masochistic relationship of like, it's so hard. And the older you get, the harder it is to be in that unknown. But yet here I am at 50 going, I'm going to move back.
Here you're in the unknown more than most people are in any type of time of their lives.
That's right. And so there's always that weird conflict internally with me as an artist where I'm like, I want to do really good work, but you have to wait for the good things. But I'm like, but I want to work. So then that requires me to even kind of be more strong, I think, spiritually and otherwise, to be cool and be able to handle downtime or the unknown, like massive uncertainty, and trust that like, oh, there's something. And also I'm proactive and I'm creative in other ways, but yeah.
So you were previously married and had a big divorce.
And
a very interesting moment at your own wedding.
The divorce lasted longer than
right.
the marriage.
The process of the divorce took longer than the marriage. Yeah. So, but were you doing TM when did you start TM in relation to that?
I wonder if
were you doing it during, after?
I don't remember if I was doing it before or during that. No, I wasn't. It started after. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's interesting because, I don't know if you want to tell the story a little bit. You had a big moment at your own wedding.
Oh, you mean when I froze on the altar?
Yeah, that moment.
Yeah, or I passed out.
Where you passed out because your body knew you should not be
my entire body froze and I shut down. Yeah, it was like if you saw it in a movie, you'd think it was over the top. That is an R-rated comedy, the whole thing that weekend. So, but yeah, I was, apparently I was dehydrated. I put that in air quotes so you guys can't see, but I froze. I couldn't speak. Like I literally was like, when they ask you, not when you say I do, but before the very beginning, like, are you here of your own volition? Are you both in this? Like, we are. I'm like, I was like, oh my God, I can't speak. And
when
I
did
had to
you
take a 20-minute break.
And when did the break happen?
It was like, I tried to keep going. And even the the minister was like, "Can you just keep going? Like, let's get through it." And I was like,
I love this story.
And I had to go because I was gonna.
So while he was leading you through those parts of the vows,
and
you're
I
like, "Can I have
remember
a
my
break?"
beautiful friend Kim Gillingham, who's my acting coach, and she does dream work, this Jungian amazing dream work, which is part of like involves meditation too. But she was reading this beautiful piece, I think my roomie or somebody. And I couldn't, because it was like, I couldn't be there. I was not, I
You
was
couldn't
like,
be at
I
your
was
own
just
wedding.
trying not to, I couldn't move my hands. They were all palsied. I thought I was having a stroke. And so then I was like, I got to take a break. And I'm looking back at all like the bridesmaids and the girls. And my
What were the
brother
faces?
my brother was beat red and sweating profusely.
Joe?
Because,
Yeah, that's Joe.
because it was a heat wave, to be fair. And all the bridesmaids were like, what? I was like, I'm not. And I had
I wish
produced
you
a
guys could
big
see the
wedding.
faces she's making
It
right
was
now.
like, there was a gospel choir. I mean, I had produced a badass wedding. It
Of
was
course.
serious. And this is also the height of kind of private practice and Gray's fame. So it was crazy. We'd sold the pictures to OK magazines. You couldn't have anybody else taking pictures. So they had tried to float hot air balloons so helicopters couldn't get in, but it was too hot. So their air balloons
Were, like,
couldn't really,
deflating.
they were deflating. They couldn't really raise. It was madness. And so I had to leave and go to a side room. And then they got me some emergency and I think a banana. And then the funniest part was Sergio.
Who's a good friend of hers.
He's a
and
very
makeup
good friend of
artist.
mine. He's my makeup. But all of a sudden they're like, Sergio. And he picks up he has a black bag, right, with makeup. And they're like, is that the doctor? And like, no, it's her makeup artist. He went in an
But
emergency.
he's like your emotional doctor.
He is for sure. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't
so absurd. It was so insane. Like if
and
I
then
would
you went back.
Yeah, then we went back. I addressed the audience or the congregation. I was like, hey guys, don't worry. Not having second thoughts. Everything's cool. Just had to take a break. I was dehydrated. And then we went on with the ceremony. The gospel choir had vamped and they got everyone up on their feet dancing. But yeah.
When you came back to the altar and looked at your fiance/husband's face, what was his face when you came back? Relief, nervousness? Do you think he knew?
He was relieved,
Because that would be mortifying.
Yeah. I mean, I think he came back there with me for a minute and then then he went back out. I don't know what it was just.
I mean, it's insane.
I remember Sean Rhimes going, that was the most interesting wedding. It's like the most exciting, entertaining, and interesting wedding I've ever been to.
I mean, part of the reason I ask is not just because I think this is an amazing story, and the reason I asked about TM is because clearly your gut was telling you something.
Oh, yeah.
And you just weren't yet 1,000% in touch with it to like understand or to.
Yeah, you could say dehydration, but I'd say
I know
my
you well
soul
enough
was
to know
screaming
you.
out for help.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't know. I mean, that's the thing is like, sometimes you just don't know. And I am not afraid to take risks. I will always go and jump off the cliff and figure out how to pull the parachute as I'm going down. But so I've learned a lot and grew a lot. I grew a lot. I was told to say that in therapy. You grew a lot.
You grew a lot. I've grown a lot too.
I've grown a lot. Yeah.
I also fall off that growing a lot boat a lot too.
All the time. It hurts. It's painful.
Let's talk about the brain tumor a little bit because you recently actually just come out
talked
and
about
talked
it.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there for
oh my
that.
God, for every bit. You visited me.
I mean, it was an insane time of your life. But let's just talk about what happened. So, because I mean, it was.
So I was doing Bad Judge for NBC and I was EPing that and starring it, and what a crazy experience that was. The whole thing was madness. And so that had just been canceled and I was exhausted, but I thought, I'm just exhausted because that's how you are after a show. And I was working out really intensely and I was doing food delivery, just doing a total actress like experiment of like, I'm going to pretend to be a real actress, like actually eat paleo and work out insanely, which I never did before, but I was like, let's try that. And so I thought that was it. So I stopped doing the intense workouts. I started, not doing food delivery, or I was still doing food delivery because it was just easy. But I went to go do Pilates and my Pilates instructor was like, I was exhausted. I could drink like 5 cups of strong coffee and still be tired. B, I went to Pilates. She's like, your right side is dipping. And I was like, I feel like I'm level. And then she's like, no, look. And my whole right hip was, off. And then I would notice when I was driving, I couldn't, I was going to everything to the right orientation was off. I was like weaving to the right. And I thought, that's weird. And then I was having difficulty finding words. It was beyond aphasia or like middle-aged fog or perimenopausal fog or whatever. It was just like, oh, I'm not finishing my thoughts. I'm not able to finish it. So I started getting scared then and feeling like, is there some sort of macular degeneration of the brain? And I'm not a hypochondriac. I'm
No.
like a person that I don't even go, I barely made it to an OBGYN really before this.
Now, who were you
once a
talking
year.
to about this, or were you not?
I was talking to my then boyfriend and my assistant but my boyfriend was convinced I was just depressed because the show was canceled. I'm like, no, I've had shows canceled. This doesn't feel like that. And now my assistant told me, he's like, I thought you were just going crazy, that you were like, because he had only known me working like all the time,
Right.
always. So he was like, oh, maybe this is what it's like when she's an
Not
actress out of
working.
work.
She's
She's
just
just loopy
insane.
and insane. And like, he told
And
me,
you were loopier. Like,
oh,
that
I didn't even,
remember.
yeah. And friends, and that's what also got scary, whereas friends were looking at me in a weird way or saying, are you okay? And I'm like, and I would think I was doing better. I'm like, yeah, like friends that I hadn't seen in a long time. And then friends that I would see regularly were like, something's off. And so I started fantasizing about going to the emergency. First, I thought it was menopause, but I'd already gone through early menopause. But I went to a hormone specialist, and a lot of the same checks were that. Am I taking up too much time talking about this?
No, not
This is
at
so
all.
boring. Anyway,
It's boring to you because you probably
I
talked about it
know.
a million times, but I think it's actually fascinating. And frankly, there's so many instances now with brain tumors, especially with women, that I
It's
actually
twice
think
as
this
common in
is
women. This
really interesting
particular
to talk
kind of
about.
tumor, it's twice as common in women as in men.
Yeah.
And we know women's medicine, I mean, that's just as a sidebar. The pharmaceutical industry does know very little, if any, testing on most drugs on women. They
Right.
test them on males. So it's like you got to really advocate and push. And that was one of the reasons why I decided to go public and partner with Cigna and all that stuff, because I think it's so important. So I was fantasizing about going to the ER. Chris, or my ex, still thinks I'm depressed, but he says, you can't go to the emergency room. It'll be public, which I wasn't. Like, he would have been right. It would have been, who knows? People would have thought I was going in for rehab
For
or something,
dehydration,
whatever.
quote unquote.
Dehydration. Oh, sorry. And so then he finds a neurologist, makes an appointment for me. I go in, and the neurologist, who shall remain nameless, says, oh, you're just, sweetheart, you're an actress and you're in your 40s, going through menopause. And he slides me a prescription for a very high dosage of Zoloft. And I was like, all respect, I'm not adverse to that, but I've never been on meds. And I'm open to that, but I just would like to get an MRI first. And he's like, why? What do you think you're going to find? And I'm like, I don't know, because I'm not an expert, but I just want to make sure everything's okay. And I don't feel why, because I can't balance, because I can't drive, because I can only talk to you for about 10 minutes. And then I'll be back in the car with my assistant driving me, and I'll go home and sleep. That's why, and I'd fallen off, I should say this, I'd fallen off TM then sometime during Bad Judge, doing it like maybe once a day instead of twice. I had stopped being able to get up in the morning and meditate straight away. So I was still doing like the afternoon meditations. And then I'd sort of fallen off when I got in this weird, funky place. And then I was so scared because I didn't know what was happening in my body that I started meditating again to calm myself with my old mantra, silent mantra. And it was hugely helpful. It was just, to calm my shit. Anyway, neurologist finally acquiesces, reluctantly.
Yeah, you insisted.
But I had to push. It's as if he had to pay for it out of his own pocket. It was really ridiculous. I don't know if it's an insurance thing and they don't like to give out, because there's no it's magnetic. It's not radiation. So I imagine it's quite expensive. And I imagine that he probably gets a lot of people that are just think they're dying all the time and want MRIs. Yes. So to be fair to the doctor. So I don't even rush it. The night before my MRI, my boyfriend, then we're in the pool, he tosses me a volleyball. I break my pinky because I have no depth perception. So I really,
it's not funny, but
I was like, oh my God. I mean, I didn't know, I couldn't balance on flip-flops. It was just weird.
I'm almost laughing because I know what your next few days are.
My God.
So it's
and
funny
I was
that you
so out of it. I was just like, la, la, la. The only thing that made me feel better other than meditation was red wine. I was like, oh, red wine for some reason calms my nerve. So who knows? Still does. Now, so I get the MRI, and they're like, we're not going to be able to tell you anything. We'll send it to the doctor, your neurologist. And I'm like, okay. And as soon as I was done, the MRI tech was like, the radiologist wants to see you. I'm like, oh, good. Someone's going to tell me something. And she says, shows me this x-ray. She's like, you have what appears to be a very large, we don't know until we get in there, but, hopefully benign meningioma brain tumor. It's like, blah, 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 blah.
So what in that moment?
I left my body. I was like, hold on. As soon as the words brain tumor were never in my psyche. I never for a minute thought brain
that's what
tumor.
it is.
Yeah. I thought maybe it was like early onset Alzheimer's or some sort of, like I said, macular degeneration. I was like, there's something I just felt instinctively. And I said, just wait. And I was like, let me get my assistant who had driven me. And I was like, Derek, are you here? Or are you out, doing dry cleaning or something? He's like, no, I'm in the lobby. So I was like, I need someone here with me because I can't process this. And I called my boyfriend immediately. And she's showing me this thing, and my brainstem line looks like a parabola. There's so much swelling. There's a massive dark spot in my front left lobe. That's the size. It's like over 5 centimeters, like a little lemon, and tons of swelling, which is why, and it's pressing on my brain so much that, my speech center, my balance, all this, cognitive processing, but all the things that gradually degenerated and then very quickly degenerated were things I could sort of like, excuse, like, oh, it's ADD. Oh my God, I can't really read a book anymore. I'm exhausted. Or wow, I'm too my phone. I have a very short attention span. Right. Or okay, I guess I need to get my eyes checked. It's blurry again. I had LASIK. So anyway, 3 days later, I was in brain surgery. I went right away to, thank God, one of the best surgeons in the country. And thank God, Dr. Keith Black. And and I was just in a fog. And I was just like, okay. And I was so relieved. And I was so in shock, I think, that I didn't even, they put me on anti-seizure meds right away. And
did you have any moment from that point, especially because it happened so quickly and you did go into surgery, like before you went under the knife, was there any fear?
Oh, yeah. I was like, well, also in an attempt, one of my friends got me in touch with some woman who had had the surgery, the same surgery as me, to sort of tell me. And I got on the phone with her the night before, and she was hysterical and freaked me out. She's like, make sure not to sneeze because you can blow your skull off.
Oh, God.
I was like, what?
Oh, God.
Oh, my God. I was like, and Chris like grabbed the phone.
He's like,
God, don't talk to her. I know. I didn't even understand they're going to take my skull off. Like, I was just like, wait, where do you make the incision? Because I'm an actress, just wondering.
Grey's Anatomy did not pay off in private practice.
No, I know. It's so meta. But I was like, oh, gosh, they take my skull off. Oh, my God. And so it was before.
What was your biggest fear going under? Like, did you have a fear of?
Well, it was like, I mean, it was very cliche. It's all the things you hear about with people. Like, I mean, when you're in pre-surgeries, you're alone. You're on the thing after a while. People leave, and you're waiting there for the anesthesiologist. And so I had like a stuffed animal, and my mother gave me rosary beads. I should say my mother gave me like cheap ass rosary beads, like these plastic, sort of like pale yellow.
But we can talk about your family later. That's perfect.
I was like,
that's exactly what she should.
I love that she gave me the shitty ones. You're like, just because we don't know. It's just whatever. It's just we can't give you the good ones. So, but I was laying there thinking, and Beau Biden had just died like 2 weeks before, a week before, for brain cancer, and I had campaigned with him and the Bidens during the Obama years, and he was such a good man. I just thought, if this is it, because they were like, we think it's benign from the edges that they could see, but we don't know until we get in there, and we won't know how it's attached, and we won't know if we'll be able to get the whole thing because it could be attached to a blood vessel or an artery, in which case we can't take all of it. And you're like, so I just thought, if this was it, I've had a great run. And if it's not it, hopefully, I really want to just use all those cliche things. I don't want to work as much. I want to travel more. I want to spend more time with family and friends. All of those things. And so luckily for me, I had a happy ending, and I've done all of those things. Like, I've changed my life dramatically. And then it changed my meditation and recovery from the brain surgery. I found that I needed more support in my meditation practice. I couldn't just do the mantra myself.
Yep.
So I started doing mindfulness and the app. Can I say which app it is? Or is it?
Yeah, it was Headspace, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So I found Headspace, and that was very helpful for me. And also a really interesting form of meditation that's different than just mantra silent meditation. There's so many different forms. All of them are useful. And I should say, even years before, I'd do meditation for maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but looking at a candle flame or breathing or whatever, or in Kundalini yoga or whatever. But this mindfulness is what I still do. But I'll also mix it up with.
That's what I mix everything up too.
And I like that about. I used to try to be more rigid. Like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do 12 minutes of writing.
And by the way, everyone has a different philosophy about it. And some people who are very strict on a lineage would probably say that's wrong and you can only reach enlightenment by one path. But I just kind of believe I feel differently at different times. So different things work for me in a different way. And I'd rather be doing it consistently and keeping the practice going than trying to force something that might not be right for me in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
exactly.
I'm with you. I change it up also.
Yeah.
But let's talk. So when you came out, you did kind of have these vows to yourself, but recovery was kind of hard for you, like in a good way and a bad way. It was hard for you, but talk about that. Like your struggle of it's a little bit we were talking about earlier of the duality of knowing what you want, but like, how do you actually make that happen? Like
in terms of,
well, I felt like watching you go through it and sitting by your side, you knew you needed to rest.
Yeah, but it was hard.
But it was really hard for you.
Oh, yeah, it's hard. You can make the promises. It's sort of like going, I'm going to go to the gym or New Year's resolutions. You're like, all right, I'm going to eat better. I'm going to exercise more, meditate more, whatever. It's hard to you can write the check, but to cash it, if you will, whatever metaphor you want to use. It was hard because there's that old operating system that was still there of like, I am defined by my work. And I'm not working. And so in one sense, I completely surrendered to the process of healing because I knew I wasn't in any way trying to get ahead of that, the physical process of healing. But I did have to live with this constant sort of anxiety too of, oh my God, when am I going to work again?
Right.
And what?
I take too much time off.
Yeah, exactly. That fear. And I ended up taking about 9 months off. And by the way, in that interim, probably about even the 3 to 4 month mark, I started getting scripts, but I was just passing on them. I just didn't want to do what I'd done before, which is at that point in time, network television or comedies that I didn't think were for me funny, or dramas that I just was like, I'm just not interested. So it was just also learning to trust myself and go, yeah, well, all right. And also have a space and a dialogue with that anxiety and with that old operating system that has gradually changed. It's still something I struggle with. Like driving here going, should I call my agent and just be like, look, we got to talk. But I'm just well enough to know, oh, that's my old thing that I'm not driving the ship anymore. I'm not steering it. So even though I know intuitively it's really healthy, I still am like, wait a minute though, maybe I should.
So let's talk about that because that is very interesting because you and I have very similar personalities that way.
Yeah.
It's like a doer, a go-getter, make stuff happen for yourself, which in some ways has been huge for you. I mean, you've come from nothing and built yourself up.
Yeah.
And it's how you get stuff done and you're an advocate. It's how you got your MRI. I mean,
so that's a real, it's, and I still don't have the answer to that because I recognize because I always want to be, look at my part in any dynamic or relationship, whether it's personal or work related or what have you. So I'm always like circumspect and going, okay, why do I feel like I want to, why am I worried about my agents? Because I'm always worried about like, are they really doing? It's a really strange, it's an antiquated system and structure to go, I'm going to leave my career in your hands. You're going to be, I'm like, how are you representing me in the world? What are you saying?
What's happening? Right.
What's happening? So it's a very strange relationship. I still don't have the answer to that one.
Right, because how do you reconcile knowing who innately you are a lot, like a fighter and a doer and a controller a little bit, with letting go and peace and acceptance.
And waiting.
Yeah. How do you reconcile that? Is that a daily struggle for you?
Yeah. Some days, that is probably still my thing that I work on with everything. I want to be about 20 minutes ahead of life, at least, if not. I wake up often wanting to be somewhere else or wanting things to be different. That's the big joke.
Mindfulness must be fascinating for you, though, because that is all about just being present in the moment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And watching my thoughts and feelings. And it's very helpful because then they don't rule my life. And I think, unfortunately, for probably many relationships, both personal and professional, they've gotten probably a good dose of my
wanting to be somewhere else.
Yeah. and my emotions and or thoughts running the life, running my career or the relationship of like, and because, and as an artist, as an actor, I have big feelings and big thoughts, and I can convince myself that anything's real. So you have to be really responsible with those. It's like being at warlock school or what you got, like I have to be responsible with my own weird little witchy powers and
But
you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying.
Because
And I
you do.
think
That's the ability to give you to believe that in 13 Reasons Why my child has died, to really believe and trick yourself and to get into that place. You're like, oh my gosh. So you have to be, it makes sense to have some kind of practice that helps you control your mind. Yeah. And, or have a better relationship with mind and emotions and all that. And even pain,
well, you just had your shoulder surgery too.
Yeah. I did a 30-day meditation on pain. It was fantastic. And I learned so much in meditation practice. And mostly that everything changes constantly.
That's the constant, that there is no constant.
Even pain. And it's really about the anticipation or the memory of it that can really kind of get you, as opposed to if you're breathing and just really being in it. You're like, where is it right now? Well, it was here 5 minutes ago. It's not here anymore.
It's so interesting you said that, because I took my daughter to the doctor yesterday, and she's been a nightmare at the doctor. And yesterday was like a huge moment for us. She turned 2 and she was actually great, like normal. Yeah. And she had such a good appointment, but she had to get the flu shot and a finger prick. And my doctor and I both looked at each other and we're like, oh no, do we do this? Do we ruin her first good appointment that she might have a good memory from? And we're like, let's just do it. That's life. And it's funny. And I was like, how am I going to handle this as a mom? Because my daughter's just super smart. Yeah. We all think our kids are smart. So, but, and I remember just looking at her and saying, and she's 2. And I just said, so Levy, we're not done yet. You have to get shots. And she just kind of looked at me and I was like, and they're going to hurt a little bit, but that's it. Just 2 small boo-boos and they're just going to hurt. And then it's going to go away. And she looked right in my eyes. And then she sat down and they're like, do you want to sit on mommy's lap? She goes, no, right here. And she stayed where she was. And I stood next to her. Finger prick. She looked at it for a second. And while they were drawing the blood, she just kept reading the magazine she was reading. And this is
She's so smart.
This is a kid who screamed through every appointment for 2 years. And then they were about to do the big one, which goes in your thigh, which hurts. And I said, again, this one's going to hurt a little bit more than that one, but it's okay. And if it hurts you, just put your hand on it and push, and that'll help it go away. And she looked at me again. And the minute they put it in, I saw her face contort with pain. And I went to go put my hand. And before my hand could go down, she put her hand on it. And she was fine. And not a peep.
Stop it.
But it was amazing because I was like, I'm just going to acknowledge that pain
But it's
exists.
also like you have all these tools. Like it's still me when I stub my toe or I hit my ankle and I am, I am like, oh, okay, there's pain there. Like push into it, acknowledge it, and let it release. Like it is so, there's just so much proof in Western medicine and progressive medicine about mind, body. I mean, and particularly PS with the recovery from brain surgery, I learned so much about the plasticity of the brain. And that's, of course,
all a lot of meditation.
And it's in the zeitgeist now, and it will be more and more in the general population, brain science and wellness. And we see it now with turmeric and curcumin and supplements. But just like there's heart health, we're going to see a lot more about brain health. But even in terms of recovery, they don't like to tell you too much, because they want you to have your own experience. And if you start encoding people with, well, you might have this, you might have that, then you're putting that thought in somebody's head, like, oh, when's this going to happen? Now, there's certain guidelines or certain posts that
they want you to hit.
Yes, but it's just very much.
But that's interesting because that alone is a lesson in meditation, whether you actually meditate or not, but to let go and have your own experience through recovery, especially something like brain surgery, where the recovery is intense. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, right? I mean, it wasn't just exhaustion, but sometimes you'd be a whole different person, right? When you woke up, I remember you telling me that it's like you'd expect to be feeling one way, and it just.
Well, the exhaustion and the emotion. I mean, also like for the first 2 months, I had to be on anti-seizure meds, which are like doggy downers. Although I had been feeling so terribly before brain surgery that wasn't really that bad for me.
Right.
Also, there was the steroids at first, which are euphoric. I thought I'd just become enlightened. I was like, I am enlightened. This is awesome. I can't believe it. I was like, come, sit in my couch and let's talk.
Well, I know your brother always makes the joke. He's like, she's never been nicer. I love it. We were talking about that at your birthday. He's like, I loved it after her birthday. She was like the nicest Kate I've ever seen.
Even before, he's like, I knew something was off because you were so mellow with mom. We were at the beach, just like, who cares? Yeah. So, but yeah, and then the enlightenment, you're like, oh no, it's like actually a lot of it was steroid induced. I was on a steroid high, but yeah, it was a lot of up and down, and I think it was you kind of, I liken it to like a computer rebooting. So but I was completely at the mercy of my body, which I think other people in life have experience with. If you have either a chronic illness or pain, or certainly older people, when you get physical medical issues, that because I think up until that, in my mid 40s, it was all about intellectually, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, like mind over body, all this stuff, and then the body becomes the arbiter. It's like the great collector, and so it was a very humbling process to be. One of the big things was I would just get tired out of nowhere, and my eyelids would just shut. It was like little awnings that would come down. You're like, oh. Or my vision. Oh, they're done. I guess I gotta lay down. Yeah.
It's so interesting because going back to what we were saying, you are a doer, you're a goer. This was the disease that was handed to you, which is fascinating. That made you, like you said, you had no choice. There was no mind over body at that point. It was all, if my body shut down, I had to shut down.
Yeah. Which I did give myself, but it was also still a struggle. But I gave myself permission and had lots of support and love and friends like you and family, and and I also found a girl who had the surgery the 10 years before me with my same team, and I called her my brain buddy. We're actually looking to start an outpatient service at Cedars called Brain Buddies, where we have that outpatient support
That's
pre
great.
and post surgery.
And you won't tell people about their skull being taken off?
We won't tell them that don't sneeze because you could, or throw up from anesthesia because you could blow your skull off.
I mean, what part of her thought that was okay to say?
I was like, well, she had
really good intention.
I was like,
she really didn't want your skull to blow up.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine?
But that's incredible. So you two, so it brought you guys
we're
together.
And I had literally talked to this woman for 2 years, or texted, never met her. And she lived in around the corner from me. We finally met this summer. I had her over for an Aperol spritz and snacks before I moved and sold the house in Encino. And I was like, hi, it's so nice to finally meet you. But we texted and talked for
a long time, because she's probably one of the few people that really understood.
She really knew. She's like, and she helped. It was just very helpful. She's like, here's a 6-week marker, 3 months, and setting goals to so you could, because it's so hard to be objective about progress,
But one of the reasons we do this podcast is because we always talk about why the Den exists too. It's learning to be authentic to yourself, learning to really know who you are. And it doesn't matter what that means or what it looks like. It's just being true to yourself and then making decisions almost in freedom because you're going in the right direction. I think part of the reason you and I immediately became friends is just because you always exude a version of that. You're always very in touch with who you are. But how do you feel do you feel like after the brain surgery that got enhanced, or do you think that was just part of the journey? Do you feel like it pushed on fast forward? Because I've noticed a ton of changes, just like you said, physically. You've moved a bunch of times. You went through a breakup afterwards.
Oh my gosh, everything shifted. Yeah, I got, and who knows if it's from, there's definitely, I think, a moment, and probably a lot of people who have had either a big illness or some kind of medical scare can relate to this, that there's sort of before tumor or before cancer, after cancer, you survive something like that. You're like, oh, yeah, what's important? And also you face your own mortality in a very real way. And I've had that experience, as I'm sure others have, earlier in my life. When my father died, I was 22, and it feels like life is over as I knew it before my dad died and after my dad died. And you get that shot of mortality. And some people have it at a young age. Some people don't have it until they never have it until they're old, and they're like, do you know what I'm saying?
How do you think that affected you having it at such a young age?
I think there's an urgency to what you want to do and how you want to live your life. But at the same time, for me now, it's a completely different experience, because I don't want to do as much as I used to do. That old me was sort of removed with the tumor, I joke. But I also, I have to meditate and have a spiritual practice so I can make space for that newer, the realer more authentic, however you want to call it, me to emerge and sort of take up, like, live more from that place as opposed to that neurosis or that old operating system, if you will, that's like, what's next though? What are you going to do?
Right.
How's it going to work? I don't know. That kind of the worry, the fear. And I think, as you know, in our culture, whether it's familial or sociological or societal, we get all these stories and narratives put on us.
Yeah, pressure.
And if you're not living that narrative, you feel perhaps less than.
But let's talk
unless you have some kind of system in place that really is like,
you're confident and
perfect, and this is amazing, and like, but I could easily go, oh my God, I'm 50, I'm single, I'm moving to New York. What is this? I didn't have a kid, and
But these are the things I love about you, where you are in your life. I love that you're the one we're texting. You're like, yeah, I'm moving to New York now. It's like, wait, didn't you just get back from New York? Wait, didn't you just move to the beach? Like, and you're like, yeah, no, I'm moving to New York.
But I know instinctively, intuitively, it's the right thing to do.
No, but that's what I love, because
I don't know what's going to happen. And I
do.
definitely look, and I'm very.
But what I like about what you're doing is you've made so many interesting moves since the surgery, I have found, whether it be certain choices of work you've made, going to go work on a play. You're like, I'm just going to go do this play for a while. And you got to go to New York, selling your house that you were attached to because you put so much love and care into it.
Yeah.
And going through a breakup, which involves some family, which I know you were attached to and love.
Yeah.
But you made
it was so painful.
And you made all of these moves, though, never because you knew what was going to be next. And that's what I thought was awesome. If anything, most of those moves kind of were very like a new adventure for you, or something totally like falling off a cliff per se. Other people might perceive it as that. Like,
yeah, but I literally drew that in my little drawing book. It was like tumbling off a cliff.
You did?
Yeah. And then on the bottom, it's like, it's going to be soft landing though.
That's so funny that I use that metaphor, because that's what I felt like with you in a good way. It was almost like you knew there was a parachute.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. It's been really amazing to watch. So whenever if you text me like, hey, I'm moving to New York, it's not like someone I know who's running away from a million things. That's not what I get from you. I get like, that's what I feel like I need to do right now. And it's happening. And that's what I love. It's like, you really are so in touch with what you need, and you're not moving there because you're like, I have to move there because this and this is going to happen. I have to move there because I'm going to meet someone. That's not it.
No. I mean, I search myself pretty thoroughly before I make a decision. And there's definitely tons of fear and anxiety around it too, or like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this. And yet it feels like that's intuitively like super right. Like, I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I have no idea what's going to happen. I don't know what it looks like. And that is a daily sort of conversation I have to have with myself to like be in a state of joy and excitement. And that's something I started doing too last year. I think rather than saying I'm freaking out, I'm like, I'm really excited.
You like purposely like
changing language. Yeah. Like, I think I believe in all of that, like changing the language, doing gratitude lists, but saying, oh, I'm excited as opposed to I'm freaking out or I'm scared or I'm nervous.
And that's a really good point, because I feel like anytime I've like entered an unknown, like, I'm excited.
It's exciting. And it's usually somebody else's voice that's telling you to be afraid. My mother's voice or society's voice, like, how's that going to work? What if you can't pay your rent? You're going to end up in a box on the street. What are you going to do then?
Well, also, look, you made a really big decision about not having kids. And that was like which I also appreciated from you too, because we talked a lot about this.
Well, you saw the process of that too, because I was like, I'm going to adopt. And then I was like, no, I'm not going to do it.
No, I mean, I like booked my flight to go help you like fill out all the paperwork. And you're like, oh, still come, but I'm not doing it, which I love, because you really.
But I really was, again, meditated on it. Like, and turned it over, because I found myself obsessing daily. Like, do I do it or do I not do it?
But let's chat about that, because that's a perfect example of societal norms, which are, and also you're a very nurturing, loving person. So it's not even like you were just doing it because you felt like you had to. You are someone who loves children.
Yeah.
You are very nurturing. So I understand why you wanted it when you thought you wanted it.
Yeah.
But talk about getting to that decision of, it's okay, this actually I don't think is for me, and I'm okay with that.
Well, that's been so myriad and multifaceted over the years, because I really always thought I would have kids. And then my career that I chose is a very, as you know, strange, murky business. And so I didn't really hit until like mid-30s. I was always like a happily working actor since my 20s. But it was really my mid-30s at Grey's Anatomy that it started kind of moving forward and hitting. And then you're working tons of hours. And then I went through early menopause. And then you're just sort of like, and then I felt like I was trying to play catch up, which I think a lot of women probably identify with. Like, you're focused on your careers. We have this like
choice.
I have a whole theory. It's like post-pill generation. We're the first birth control pill generation where we have this choice that my parents didn't have. I mean, maybe a little bit you could argue, but my mother, got married, had babies, and then got divorced. And
No,
then
we are
tried
the
to
first
find,
generation that
we're the
had,
first generation.
lucky enough, we had choice.
We had choice.
But
We're very
paying
fortunate
for it, unfortunately, in another way.
That's correct. So it's this idea that we're told in our culture you should and can have every single thing. And then you're like, I should and can have everything. Why aren't I? So I think that's really hard. And it leaves us without a roadmap.
When do you feel like you felt that moment of, wait, I can't have it?
I remember feeling like I wanted to, but then I never wanted to do it alone. That was my thing, And
maybe that was a blessing that you knew that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise.
And then even this last time when I was like, okay, I'm going to do it on my own. And I had like one friend who's done it alone. And I remember going to visit with her and she's like, it's really hard. I mean, of course, you never regret it. She's like, this is my biggest love of my life, but it's hard. And for me, I thought, I know what I would have to do. I just got again, and then maybe that's midlife, maybe it's meditation, maybe it's post-brain surgery, but I got very close. And then I had a very good friend, our mutual friend, who just had her baby with a husband and she's like, it's really hard. And I'm doing, and you end up doing all the work, really. No, you're meaning the mom. And I thought for me, particularly because I don't have a second income, it would be me having to work a lot and have to get full-time help. And then I just looked at it and I looked at it very pragmatically. And also when I was obsessing, I should say this, in New York, when I was doing the play and I was talking to you, I had this block, like, I'm going to do it. I just can't fill out the paperwork.
Right. You really did have a block. I
had a block. Because
I remember before you left for New York, I was like, we'll do it really quickly. You can do it if you want. And
then
totally
there was
had a block.
I had a block. Something was holding me back. And so rather than trying to figure it out, which is our instinct, I'm going to try to figure this out, write pages of pros and cons, which I did. And then I was just like, let it go. And when you let it go and you just really give yourself permission to go, what is it that I want to do if I didn't have anybody to answer to? Oh, I'd like to do another play, or I want to travel. Like, so what happened with me was like, I'm going to adopt a baby, but first I got to go do this play. And then after the play, I'll come back and adopt that baby. And then after the play, I was like, I really want to travel because I'm going to have to go back to work in a month on 13 Reasons Why. So, and then everything, when I just looked at what I really
kept putting
wanted
other
to
things
do,
before it.
Oh, I clearly want to do other things. And then I really thought, if I can't fill out this paperwork, I don't really want to do this. And I didn't. And then I just got really honest and relieved. I was like, okay, But that doesn't mean I still don't feel societal pressure.
But that's what I was just about to ask
you.
Or
don't feel regret sometimes.
And where do you think the regret comes from?
I think just that it's not even regret or more grief of like, oh.
That version of what you pictured.
I didn't take that path. That's not my path. And it's not even I didn't take it. Life took me and then I took I think it's a symbiotic thing.
Yeah.
But I feel very grateful and blessed that I have all these babies in my life that I get to,
you do
spend time with. But it was really, and I've had the experience of being a step parent, arguably in some of the most difficult years, like prepubescent to teenage years, 2 boys, And so I really loved that experience. But yeah, so I mean, who knows what the future holds, but I feel fine and clear that I'm not a mom.
Are there any other moments in your life that what you just said I thought was so interesting of like, I have to mourn that path that wasn't really mine. But like, are there any other moments in your life you can look back on and be like, oh yeah, that was definitely a path choice and I went this way. And that's what, like, this is how I got here.
Yes. I mean, my first love, my first boyfriend, I dated him from like 15 to 19. I mean, everyone thought we were going to get married. There was this real dichotomy or duality in me of like wanting, because I had such a non-traditional kind of erratic upbringing that there was a part of me that really desired this very provincial, domestic, linear, go to college, get a degree. Like I wanted to be that person so badly that was normal, quote, like, okay. Yeah. And, get married, have kids, have a house, 2 cars, like have a
white picket fence.
Yes, all of that. But that wasn't who I was at all. So I think all these little pieces, you sort of go, oh, I'm not that. That's not my experience. Not this time around anyway,
But it's interesting because everyone discovers who they are at different times. And it's
Yeah.
it's a struggle when you don't know who you are because you make those decisions. So it sounds like you were actually really lucky. You always kind of
I
knew
went
who
to
you
college
were.
and I dropped out. Thank God. My mother's like, go to college, get a degree in computers.
Oh God, I know you well
This
enough
is,
to know that was a mistake.
1985. Yeah, you're like, what? Okay, yeah. And then after changing majors 800 times, getting on academic probation, moving back, and then it's like, wait a minute, I wanted to act, and they didn't have a good theater program. For me, it was not the right theater program at the U of A. So I went and just did black box theater training, then did summer stock, and then went in Chicago, more theater training, got my equity card, and yeah.
What was your childhood
Followed my
like?
dream. Crazy. I mean, amazing and crazy. My parents were divorced when I was 6, and I was the youngest of 5, but I went with my mother. I'm the only one. And the other kids, one was already out of the house, but the other 3 stayed with my dad. And so I went from being a youngest of 5 to sort of an only child and not seeing my siblings a lot. That was really hard. But I kind of went on this adventure with my mother, who then married a guy who's 17 years younger than her. They're still married. I call her the OC, the original cougar. And we moved a lot. And but his family was really incredible and beautiful. And his mother, my step grandmother, who just passed this year, was an incredible, like a profoundly generous woman and a great part of my life. And his family experience was very kind of crucial. And he was a great stepfather too. It was funny. I was talking with Sonia about doing her like bookish podcast, and I realized the first books that were really given to me were my stepfather. And he gave me, because I grew up in California, and before we moved to Arizona, he gave me books on John Steinbeck, Cannery Row, because I knew the coast and I loved tide pools. And so I was like the only 8-year-old, I think, reading Cannery Row. I'm like, hey, have you guys read Cannery Row? Anybody?
Everyone's like, no.
Steinbeck? No.
Who's Steinbeck?
Steinbeck. Yeah. So that, not to be, I wasn't, that's
So he was
not a humble brag.
He was a huge influence on you.
Huge, and a lot of love and nurturing, and very lucky in that sense. Yeah.
And did you see your dad a lot after the divorce?
No. Especially when we moved to Tucson, I would see him like once in the summer and once at Christmas. So that was hard.
And
these are huge pieces that really inform, obviously, who you are.
Yeah, well, it's a crucial time of your life, which is very informative.
Yeah.
And you're very, very, you're close to your siblings and extremely close to your brother Joe.
Yeah.
But you guys he was with your dad. So
yeah, he came to live with us when he was 14 and I was 10 or 9 or 15 and 10 or something. Yeah. And then we fought like animals the way a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old would do. And then we became close when he was after college, and then after I went. It was like when I became who I was is when we became close. So when I dropped out of college and I went to teach English in Japan, and was reading.
Yeah, that was my path.
Did you choose
me between moving to LA or teaching English in Japan?
Oh, really?
That's so funny. I had an offer, and then I had an offer in LA, and that was my big, I think I'm going to try LA.
Oh, how funny. How did we not know that?
I know, we've never actually made that connection.
Before I dropped out of college, I was able to get into like these 300 and 400 level English classes because my brother had gone there before me. And that was like the only thing I liked doing was reading books and writing. And art history I love too.
Me too.
But so I was an avid reader, and then I started writing to Joe, writing letters. This is like one letter. People wrote letters from Japan. And I was reading really into D.H. Lawrence at the time. And I was staying with this Japanese professor whose dissertation was on D.H. Lawrence. So it was like Joe and I started just connecting over literature and writing and being an artist. And then we just happened to become really good friends.
Yeah, and found your adult relationship.
Yeah, we found our adult relationship. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. I will say, and then we can wrap up a little bit, but one of the things at your 50th that kept coming up from your friends who've known you since you were little, and Joe, people who've been with you since like the Arizona days, who are awesome, they all kept, every time everyone spoke, they all said in a different way, like, we all knew you were going to be famous.
Oh, really? It's so funny.
Do you remember them saying that? Like, every time one of them said it, everyone was like, yep. And I found that so interesting. Funny. So now do you look back and feel like you always knew in like your core, like what you were going to be, that you were going to be an actress? Well,
I will say, for as much as I vacillate still and struggle with wanting to be clear and clarity, and because I feel like I just go, well, should I, shouldn't I? The ambiguity of life is so hard for me sometimes to navigate. I was always clear from when I was a little kid that I wanted to be an actress. And I only got in trouble when I tried not to be that, when I tried to be more practical or normal
study computers.
Yeah, or computers.
Computers.
That wasn't me. That just wasn't, that was my mom, who is lovely, but is, there's a lot of, I think, as probably a lot of parents are for their kids when they want to be an actor or a dancer or a musician.
They're terrified.
They're like, how are you going to pay? Who's
and I can't afford to keep taking care of you for the
That's
rest
right.
of my life.
That's right. So, but for me, I knew that. I remember watching old movies when I was little with my mom, old black and white movies, $1 Million movie. And I'm like, I want to do that. And started doing it when I was a kid. And I loved it. I loved being on, but what I realized too is I love really being on stage. That's my joy. And so that's part of the reason I made big shifts in house selling and going back to New York and, downsizing my life, making my life to where it supports more of who I am really authentically, as opposed to I got this big house and I love doing all that. I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
Nope.
But for me, I just was like, oh, I really want there as part of my work to be able to do live theater, which doesn't pay. And it needs just an important piece of my
soul.
Yeah. So.
And you've always known that.
Yeah.
And it's always guided you, which is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. Well, I have a few quickies for you to just answer for us. What's your favorite spiritual book? I know you were talking about Esther Hicks, I think, before we started recording, actually. But do you have a favorite spiritual book?
I don't have a go-to one. I do love Eckhart Tolle. I love The Power of Now, but I love the New Earth too.
Mm-hmm.
I listen. I find it's easier for me to listen. I also love Pema Chodron. I find those easier for me to absorb on audiobooks. I just don't want to read spiritual books.
No, I get.
I don't want to, and I don't want to read nonfiction. I'm like, I only want to read fiction to where I can escape into this. Doesn't mean it's less valuable.
No.
But I'm like, I like listening to it, and I hear it, and I'm sure this
because probably in some way you feel like, wait, this is a lesson. I'm learning, so I want to hear it from the teacher.
Yeah,
I'm a little bit the same way. I like to listen to them also, and same thing. I love to get lost in pages of fiction because I feel like I just want to get lost in a story.
Yeah, exactly. So so I have a few of them in rotation. But I also, Sterling told me about You Are a Badass. So I got the...
we have that out on the front.
I got the audiobook. So I'm like, got that. I just like listening. I think it's one of the beautiful things about being in LA and you're in your car so much is it's a great chance to reprogram yourself.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to being annoyed at being in traffic. You can, breathe and meditate in the car too. But you can really I take it as an opportunity to reprogram.
No, it is great. And you also keep choosing to live in the opposite ends of Los Angeles. So it gives you a lot of time.
I know. Oh my God.
But at least it doesn't drive you crazy. For some people, it will make them crazy being in the car. But the fact that you actually...
It makes me a little crazy. But you're like, I have a choice. Am I going to be crazy or am I going to make, enjoy it? So...
If you could say anything to yourself 20 years ago, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. Just keep being courageous, I think. Yeah, there's a lot of things I'd like to say to her. Probably just said, stay in New York. You don't have to go. No, but I think there's a part of me that I don't think there's any real mistakes. I really don't. But I think that I still was operating from that little bit of that fear system of survival, because there was always that neck and neck, that struggle with do what you love, but how are you going to pay for it? What if it doesn't work? But I have to. This is who I have to be. So I just would keep encouraging. I would keep encouraging. I don't think I would have done anything different. Yeah.
Just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Believe in yourself.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. I think we should end on that because I think that is basically right. It's like you're on your path and just trust it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now let's listen to Kate's personal practice, a poem, Everything is Waiting for You by David Whyte.
Everything is waiting for you. Your great mistake is to act the drama as if you were alone, as if life were a progressive and cunning crime with no witness to the tiny hidden transgressions. To feel abandoned is to deny the intimacy of your surroundings. Surely Even you, at times, have felt the grand array, the swelling presence, and the chorus crowding out your solo voice. You must note the way the soap dish enables you, or the window latch grants you courage. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. The stairs are your mentor of things to come. The doors have always been there to frighten you and invite you, and the tiny speaker in the phone is your dream ladder to divinity. Put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. The kettle is singing, even as it pours you a drink. The cooking pots have left their arrogant aloofness and seen the good in you at last. All the birds and creatures of the world are unutterably themselves. Everything is waiting for you.